This presentation is about the word association thematic analysis research method. The presentation is going to explain in general terms how the method works and will give some pointers about how to apply the method using the software Mojde. First of all, what is word association thematic analysis? It's a method to identify themes in sets of texts. In that sense, it's the same as thematic analysis, but it has substantial differences. It needs a large set of texts, usually at least 10,000. It needs ideas for a comparison. Word association thematic analysis centers around comparisons, so you need to have ideas for some kind of comparison within your texts, and the free software Mojde or your own program to make the comparisons with. The output of a word association thematic analysis is a set of themes related to the comparison, and each theme is derived from a set of words identified from the comparison. So the output is themes about the text that you've gathered. The first requirement is a large set of texts. These can be from any source, including tweets, YouTube comments, TripAdvisor reviews, Reddit posts, the titles, abstracts and keywords of academic papers or reviews of academic papers. These are all sources of text that have been used in word association thematic analysis in the past. And Mojde can collect the tweets or YouTube comments for you. And 10,000 text is suggested as the minimum. If you have more, then you can expect to get finer grained themes and deeper insights into your texts. You can also get better results from more focused texts or longer texts. The second requirement is some kind of comparison to apply to your texts. Your comparison might derive from your project goals. Your project might involve a comparison, such as gender. You might be interested in male versus female differences, or male versus female versus non-binary differences in the authors of the texts. You might be interested in time, earlier posts versus later posts, or posts in one time period versus posts in another time period. Or popularity, what characterizes a popular post or an unpopular post, however popularity is measured, for example by retweets or likes or some kind of reward. You might be interested in the sentiment, comparing the positive versus the negative posts, or you might have two topics that you want to compare for some reason as part of your project. If you don't have a comparison to make, then you may still be able to compare your project text against non-project texts. So you understand your project by contextualizing it against a set of comparator texts. And I'll give an example of that later. Let's have a look at some examples of all of these. For example, if you're interested in gender, previous studies have looked at how do males and females comment differently on museum videos. What are the gender differences in reactions to museum videos? Which research topics and methods are used more by females or males within academic fields? And how do males, females and non-binaries describe themselves differently in their Twitter bios? These projects all focus on gender differences. You might also have a time comparison. For example, how did tweets about racism change after the killing of George Floyd in 2020? Or which academic topics and methods are more common now than in the past? A topic 1 versus topic 2 type of comparison includes how do reviews of 5-star hotels differ from reviews about 1-star hotels? So two quite similar topics there. Other comparison examples: popularity. How are highly retweeted United Nations Development Programme tweets different from less retweeted UNDP tweets? This might give them insights into trying to make more successful tweets. Sentiment comparison. What What aspects of hotels do people comment on when they leave positive reviews in comparison to negative reviews, or the other way around? When people leave negative reviews, what do they comment on? Is it the cleanliness? Is it the toilets? Or is it something else? And an example of a non-project text comparison, if you're interested in patient reactions to eczema or patient discussions of eczema, so your project texts are just about eczema, then you might compare them to texts from patients of other diseases or disorders or health conditions. And so the comparison would be your project eczema versus a comparator set other health conditions. So this last example is a way in which you can use a meaningful comparison even when it's not part of your project. It's not the core of your project. Here's an overview of the word association thematic analysis, the stages. First of all, you need to get your data, either away from Mojday or using Mojday if it's Twitter or YouTube. The second step is word association detection. In this step, Mojday will identify the words that are more common in each subset of text compared. This is an automatic stage which will be demonstrated in a little bit. The next stage is word association contextualization. For this, you contextualize each word to identify its typical meaning and context in your text. A word on its own might be ambiguous, and so the contextualization stage clarifies the ambiguity in a word on its own. And finally, the thematic analysis, you identify the themes in the contextualized words. These four stages together make up WATA, Word Association Thematic Analysis. I'm going to go through all of these stages now. First of all, data collection. Mojday can collect tweets from either keyword queries or sets of users. There's information about the Mojday website about how to do this, and it can also collect YouTube comments. Again, see the website for how this works. It can import plain text files. If your texts are in simple plain text files, Mojday can read them in, or if your texts are in tab delimited plain text files, Mojday can also read them in. If not, you're going to have to convert your files to one of these two formats for Mojday to read it. And help on the website for either collecting tweets or comments or importing texts into Mojday. The second stage, word association detection. Mojday's Mine Association button does this. It detects words that occur more often in a specified set of text than in the remainder. What does this mean? Well, a word associates with a subset of text, for example, the female texts, if the word occurs in a higher percentage of texts in a subset than the remainder, and the difference in percentages is statistically significant. Mojday takes care of the stats for you. So let's have a look at some examples. Let's say we've found OMG in our collection of tweets, and it's a female associated data. It's female associated in a particular set of tweets because it's in 15% of female tweets, but only 10% of the rest. So it's higher in the female, so that makes it a candidate for female associated. And Mojday reports that the difference is statistically significant. So OMG would be a female associated term. In contrast, wobble is not a late associated term in my data because it's in 4% of late comments, but 5% of earlier comments. So it's not late associated. It could be early associated possibly, but it's definitely not late associated because it's rarer in the later comments. And finally, excellent is not popularity associated in my data because whilst it's in 10% of popular tweets and 9% of the rest, so it's more common in popular tweets, Mojday reports that the difference is not statistically significant. So we need a term to be higher in the set of tweets we're looking at, and we need the difference to be statistically significant. I'll mention a little bit about the statistical significance tests in a bit. In Mojde, to run the word association detection, you need to select the filters or enter the topic defining query in the search box and then click the Mine Associations button. Then Mojde displays a table of the top 1,000 word associations, a list of 1,000 words that associate, up to 1,000 of which will associate with your topic or filters. And terms with 1 to 3 stars at the end of their row are the statistically significant ones. More information on the website. The statistical background is that Mojde checks for statistical significance with a chi-square test and a Benjamini-Hochberg correction to test statistical significance protecting family-wise error rates. So this is a very safe method of identifying genuinely statistically significant differences between terms. Here's an example of the results from Mojde. So here, this is a female, a filter selected. So I'm asking Mojde to mine associations for search and filters, and I've got a female filter. So this is finding female associated terms. And the list in the red box in the bottom left are all words that are used more by females than by males and are statistically significant, so they all associate with females in this data set, which is comments on TED Talks on YouTube. If you look right at the end, at the right hand side column, you see stars, and these are the statistical significance stars, and you can ignore the percentages. If you're interested in the rest of the numbers here, the match PC, that would be the percentage of female comments containing the word, and the no match percentage is the percentage of the remaining text that contain the word. So 6.2% of female comments contain the word thank, and 2.8% of the remaining comments contain the word thank, which is why it's a female associated term. So it's right straightforward to do this on Mojde. You select a filter, click the button, and then you wait a few minutes until Mojde gives you the results. Next stage, stage 3 of the WATA method, is word association contextualization. The word association detection stage, stage 2, produces a list of terms that associate with the filters or query, but doesn't explain their meaning or context, and words almost always ambiguous. So we need to first detect the surface meaning of the term. For example, if like is one of the words, does it mean like as a comparator? This is like that. Or does it mean like expressing positive sentiment? I like this. So we need to decide which version of like is the most common one in our data set, in our texts. We need to detect the context of the term. Even if the meaning of a term is clear, terms can be used in lots of different contexts. For example, in one data set we found congressional to be a statistically significant term associating with female tweeters, and we found that the context was it was used to discuss congressional district voting results in the USA. So a very specific context for this term. And both meaning and context are needed to draw conclusions about a word association. It's not very helpful to know that congressional is female associated compared to knowing that discussing congressional district voting results is female associated. The second one is much more precise and much more useful as a result. How do we detect the context and meaning? We use the quick whack method. Quick is keyword in context, and it's a method from corpus linguistics that's very straightforward. Read a random sample of text containing the term, the keyword, to identify its meaning and context. And I recommend that you read at least 10 texts but read more if it's particularly important or the results aren't very clear from the first 10 texts. Then identify the dominant meaning and contexts, and if there are no dominant meanings or context, you have to throw the word away. To do this, in Mosh-Day, you enter the term as a query, set the filters that you used to obtain the word in the first place, select the random sort order so that you get a random set of texts for the quick information, and then click search. For example, we're going to look at the word inspiring from the TED Talk comments. It was a female associated term in TED Talk comments. So we'd enter inspiring as a query term in Mosh-Day. We would select the female filter because we found inspiring from a female filter because it's a female associating term. And we select the random sort by order in Mosh-Day. And then Mosh-Day will give us a random ordered list of comments from females containing the word inspiring. If you look down all these comments, you'll see the word inspiring is somewhere in all of them. You can't tell that they're from females, but Mosh-Day has worked out that they're from female YouTubers. So that's how it works in Mosh-Day. Here's an example just so that you can practice the detecting of meaning and context through this method. So here there are 6 YouTube comments containing the word love. Love is one of the female associated words in the YouTube TED Talk comments. And I'd like you to read through these and then decide how you would describe the word love in terms of its meaning and context. What phrase would you use to describe the meaning and context of the word love from these texts? So pause the video now, and when you've got your answer, restart it and I'll show you my answer. So my answer is loving the video or presenter. I'm guessing that Amanda in the next to last comment is the presenter, and this man must be the presenter as well, and love her means the presenter. So I'm guessing that they're mainly referring to the presenter. So the word love is used in the context of loving the video or presenter of the TED Talk. So that's a very specific meaning. The word love can mean lots of things, from strong to weak meanings. So the fact that it refers to the video or its presenter in this context gives us a very narrow contextualization for the term, which is more useful if you're trying to interpret the results. Here's an example of some terms that have their meaning and context detected. After completing the wax stage for a specified number of word association terms, I'd recommend at least 100. The result will be a list of meanings and contexts. And in the table below, these terms come from racism on Twitter during COVID-19. And there are four terms and a meaning and context for each one. And I think of these 4 terms, 2 have unclear surface meanings and all of them have unclear context. So by unclear surface meanings, I think 2 of the words could mean something completely different. And unclear context, I think that all of the words could be used in completely different contexts to the context in COVID-19. So which 2 terms do you think have unclear surface meanings? They're ambiguous in the surface meaning of the word. So have a guess and then I'll show you my answer. So I think calling and slur. Calling could mean vocation rather than calling name, and many other meanings really, and slur could mean slurring words rather than insult. So I think these 2 can have radically different meanings, but all 4 words could have radically different contexts. So the meaning and context column in this table is very helpful for interpreting the significance of each term. if you only have a few significant terms, for example, less than 15, then you might not need the final thematic analysis stage of word association thematic analysis. And then you can skip that stage, and then the method would be called word association analysis. If you've only got a few terms, there's no point in clustering them. Okay, final stage, thematic analysis. This is a variant of the thematic analysis social science research method, and you apply it only after the word association contextualization, and you apply it to the context detected from the WAC stage. So don't skip the WAC stage, because that's essential to get meaningful thematic analysis. Tag each term with a single candidate theme generalizing its context. This is an important difference with general thematic analysis. Each term should have just a single candidate theme, and the theme should generalize the context and, if possible, relevant to your research goals. Try to find generalizing themes that can encompass multiple terms. So look for themes that don't just fit that word but might fit other words as well. And once you've gone through all the terms once, sort by theme. This is easy to do if you're using a spreadsheet. And then look for opportunities to merge similar themes and check that all terms genuinely fit the theme that you've got. And be prepared to repeat this many times until you're happy with the final set of themes that you get. And if you decide to adjust a theme, then recode or check this theme on all terms when adjusting the theme. So this makes sure that you don't accidentally get a misclassified term when you change a theme or introduce a new theme that you hadn't thought of before. So it's important to repeatedly compare the terms for the themes and compare the themes until you get a settled, stable collection of themes that genuinely fit your texts and your words. Here's an example. So if we look at just these 4 words, usually we work on 100, but here we've just got 4. I've looked at these and tried to group them into themes, and I think they come into 2 themes. So I've grouped them into 2 themes, and I've got names for the themes. And I'd like you to try to do the same and see if you get the same answer as me. So this is a mini thematic analysis. Pause the presentation now and decide which words would group together and what you would call the group. Here is my answer. My first theme from the thematic analysis is racial or ethnic disparities in coronavirus deaths, and I think that's just the top term. And I think the other 3 terms are related, so I've put them into one theme, which is an anti-Asian racism theme. So I think these 2 represent 2 different themes. Did you get something similar? So my answer isn't the correct answer. You might have got something different that also makes sense with the data. But I think in this case, it's fairly clear cut that 3 fit into one theme and 1 fits into another. But often doing a thematic analysis, there are many decisions that aren't clear cut, and it takes a lot of thought to come up with themes that make sense to you and fit the data. When you finish the word association thematic analysis, you might need to report it in a journal article or other type of report. So I'd recommend a table of theme names if you have a lot of themes. Sometimes we get really large numbers of themes, so reporting in a table is suitable, but usually there are fewer themes and it's appropriate to report a bullet point list of the themes. And I'd recommend including the name of the theme, an anonymized quote, important to anonymize for privacy reasons usually, and then an explanation and a list of associated words from that theme. Here's an example. This is the results, or well, part of the results of a thematic analysis of YouTube comments about bullying. So my first theme was bullying, and my anonymized quote is "the bullying was horrible," and these are all words that describe the bullying incident. And my second theme is school, and my anonymized quote is "it happened at school," and the comment is "the only physical location for bullying mentioned was school," and the words associated with school included school itself and primary, grade, secondary, and at was the contextualization showed that at usually was followed by the word school or some type of school name. And finally, cyberbullying was the third theme, with the modified quote "I was attacked online," and several words described cyberbullying, including cyberbullying, cyberbully, cyberbullied, suggesting that their bullying had happened online in some form. So this is a format that I like for reporting thematic analysis. Quote, examples of the terms, name of the theme, and a little bit of context or description of the theme. To summarize word association thematic analysis, it's a method to identify themes in sets of texts, as we've seen. Usually we need 10,000 texts or more. We also need some kind of comparison, even if it's with text outside your project, and we need Mojday for the processing. The first stage after collecting your data is word association detection, and for this, Mojday detects words associating with a topic or a filter, such as gender, time, popularity, or sentiment. And the next stage is contextualization. For this, you identify the meaning and context of recommended at least 100 of the words identified from the word association detection. And a thematic analysis clusters the terms into generalizing themes, and then you can report them in bullet points or tables. So that's an overview of word association thematic analysis. If you'd like more information, please let me know, and there should be more material available on the website for you to read papers that have used the method or a book about the method.